committee. Today is Tuesday, August 1st, and I do detect a quorum with council members Parker, Withers, Swope, Porterfield, and myself, so 5 in attendance. For the public comment period, we did have 2 people sign up but not confirmed. Is Faith Myron here? Christian Stoltz? Okay, so with that...
Moving on.
Sorry?
Moving on.
Yep, moving on. Onto the meeting, onto the agenda rather. So the first item up is RS 2023-2340 by Roten and Hancock. This approves an MOU between the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the Metropolitan Government for participation in the E-Verify program. Could I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. In the budget meeting yesterday, this was deferred 1 meeting for some additional information. It passed unanimously, so I would recommend a 1 meeting deferral.
So moved.
Can I get a second? All right, moved and seconded. Any dialogue, any questions? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Deferred 1 meeting. 5 in favor, 0 against. The next item on the agenda is RS 2023-2353 by Johnston. This requests that the Human Resources Department study the use of the Consumer Price Index for determining cost of living adjustments for employees of the Metropolitan Government and the policy and practice of modifying step positions and step increment dates during pay plan implementation, and requesting the Civil Service Commission create policy based on the results of the study.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I do have a question.
Councilwoman Porterfield.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you for being here. You probably already know the line of my question. And what is the process for also doing this study for retirees? Can we kind of talk through that?
Yes. I hope you've gotten my emails. This is not the avenue for it.
Yeah, I want to make sure that it's publicly.
Absolutely. Okay, so retirees are paid out of the pension fund. That is under the jurisdiction of the Employee Benefit Board, so that is a separate trust that pays them. Cost of living adjustments for retirees are built into the code. So it's calculation, how much they receive for Divisions A, which is the kind of older pension plan less people are a part of. Division B is the pension plan that's been in effect since 1996. Most people are part of that. So the cost of living adjustment is a benefit derivative under the benefit system. It is built into the code, and the only way that that can be modified is if it goes through the study and formulating committee process. You guys are probably familiar with that. It's the process by which any benefit or change to the code has to originate with this independent 5-member body that's appointed at least once every 5 years by charter. They study, it can make recommendations to changes to benefits, recommend those for the board's consideration. The Employee Benefit Board can deliberate and make recommendations then forward to council. One of the benefit changes you guys did in the past couple years that's a derivative of that process was putting the E911 dispatchers in the public safety pension plan. But that is the legally required process. A study and formulating committee, the last one was appointed in 2021, so I expect that the new mayor in his first term will have to appoint, because statutorily it's supposed to be appointed at least once every 5 years. And anybody can present that item or any other change to the benefit system they would like that 5-member body to study, and then they can start that process to get those recommendations.
Could that recommendation be made to the board that was appointed in 2020, 2021? Are they still the board until another one is appointed?
No, it is up to 12 months, and then it disbands. So it's 5 members outside of Metro who have interest and understanding. So the mayor will appoint 5 members. They're not Metro employees. They're not directors or anything like that. Those 5 members are appointed for up to a 12-month appointment, and then they conclude their appointment and issue a report. And that is kind of the once every 5 years are the 3rd board that's supported out of HR.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that was we had email correspondence, but I just want to make sure that that is public so that people will understand what the process is. So
Yes,
thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Councilmember
Thank
Smith.
you, Madam Chair. Is this a non-binding resolution?
I mean,
The requests
That's,
I think it is. I don't want to steal the thunder of the resolution. We were already going to study these things anyway. These are like known pain points. So we had already planned on having these studied, and then when we saw the resolution and I read it, and I was like, we were already planning to ask all of those things with the external consultant. The only addition, which I'm totally in favor of, is would you share the report at the end with MNPS? Of course. Any peer that wanted it, but we were already going to do it.
and thank you. You just answered my second question.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Any other discussion? Okay, we're ready for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 5 in favor, 0 against, motion carries. The next on to bills on second reading, we have two. The first one is BL 2023-2106. This is by Syracuse, O'Connell, Pulley, and others. It amends the Metropolitan Code to clarify that all types of amplified music, including live music, must be limited to certain decibels to ensure adequate public health and safety.
So moved.
There is a proposed substitute. Go ahead.
I would move the substitute.
All right.
Second.
Okay, the substitute has been moved and seconded. Councilmember Syracuse, you want to give us a chat about this?
Sure, thank you, Chair. So with this substitute, the title that you see before you actually is not as accurate as it is with the substitute being added on there. So I said yes to take this on as Chair of Public Health and Safety. Part of this request did come from the police department, who said they can't hear each other down there. So I did go into this and tell all the Broadway business owners, musicians, and hospitality workers that if I couldn't come to a consensus with everybody, that I would pull this. But I did have robust engagement with Lower Broadway owners, with musicians and hospitality industry, and the substitute does reflect the general consensus that we met. And so all it does is it doesn't do anything about exterior speakers. It just says interior speakers, the large ones around musicians that they would otherwise turn towards the street to try to bring people in. Those are the ones that are just going to be said, don't put them within 10 feet of the open window or the door. And that was agreeable to everybody, musicians, Broadway, all the business owners on Broadway. And so that is basically what it does. It also then creates an advisory committee that led by the director of the mayor's office of nightlife to convene a group to start looking into some of the nuances that we removed here from the substitute, so we can start to dive into those and have a discussion before we try to regulate those. And then the other thing was that it does give codes and NDOT some authority on enforcement here, and then there's going to be an MOU between PD, codes, and NDOT so that everybody's on the same page about how this would be enforced. So this has strong approval from everybody, so I would request your approval to move the substitute.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions, and I see a council member will. When this first came from the administration, I reached out to some artists, so I'm glad to hear that you spoke with some as well. And the big concern was, what will it mean for them?
Absolutely.
With the speakers pointing inward for their hearing, for their ability to play and such. So I'm glad to hear that seems to have been alleviated some. I still do have concerns about adding in codes at this point. However, knowing that there's going to be an MOU, I spoke with Mr. Jameson today, and he said that prior to third reading, we'll get that MOU, and that it will be able to be amended and attached to this. The challenge that we have is that this is not amendable on third if there's people who object to it. So can you speak to that process about amending on third?
So by rules, most bills are not amendable on third reading. So it would require rule suspension in order to bring an amendment on third.
And so what I understand from the administration is that they would be supportive. They would seek the body to not object to the suspension of those rules in order to get the MOU attached to it. My concern there is that the codes department currently doesn't have staffing in the budget.
Indeed.
Pardon?
Indeed.
Yeah, okay, I thought you said they do. I'm like, no. Right, so my concern is that they don't have staffing, so by adding them into this, I think if there's positions that are open from the other departments that potentially could be taken from those departments and added over, none of that can happen until the budget season anyway. But the challenge for me becomes, is that something that we could prepare codes to do if we're going to make this something that we're asking them to do? Director Ellercott.
Thank you. Madam Chair. I just, real quickly, was with Benton, and he wanted me to apologize for not being over here, but he had to stay in another committee meeting. But I did want to share that in the budget, the nighttime mayor and that group that is being put together included 2 code positions. So there is going to be the ability to have some code representation that's going to be tied into the nighttime mayor and that overall initiative. So
Okay.
I just wanted to share that out.
Thank you for that. Mr. Dodd, I know you have 2 positions. Could you speak to what Director Alarcon just described?
Yeah, so in FY '23, there was a consultant came, said, hey, Codes is in need of 31 positions, including 6 property standards inspectors. We came back and later added 2 that would focus on noise for a total of 8. We still don't have job descriptions of those, or it's going to be very different. But we've been told that the goal for that is to gather data and do follow-ups to help with court research. I think the cases that go to environmental court or wherever they would go. So I think those are the 2 positions. We obviously need to go before service and get the job descriptions and figure out what they're going to look like. But I believe that's the goal for the 2 noise inspectors.
Thank you.
Mostly gathering data.
So it sounds like we're going really fast on creating this without resources in that department. But I think if we can get that MOU in advance of the next reading, for me, I'm satisfied with that. But I do want to see that MOU and definitely want to make sure that that's going to protect all of our departments so that you all have the resources that you need to be successful. I definitely see the concern for MNPD and want to support this. I just want to make sure that the way that it's being supported is by departments that we're not setting them up to fail. So, Councilmember Swope.
Thank the Downtown Partnership for joining us.
Yes,
How do you all feel about this?
well, we're very much in support. I mean, it's all about the perspective of public safety. And if this is what our police department is saying, is that this is just adding a challenge unnecessarily to safety and potential public safety, we're all in on, giving them whatever they need. I think where we landed on this is that, this is just we feel it's a better written ordinance in that there's always been ways to enforce noise, but the way you would have had to enforce noise is a very difficult to measure metric of the 85 decibel. That still is in there, but they have this additional more black and white thing to look at to decide if there's a violation, and we think that that's going to improve public safety. It's all about what's spilling out onto the street. That makes it a cacophony that's challenging.
And your business owners are okay with it?
Yes, and we've been working closely with the Broadway Entertainment Association, who's doing a lot of that legwork of that communication, and he's got full support.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Parker.
Thank you. So I guess from the MNPD, NDOT, and code side, will this impact, so this seems like it's very focused on a particular problem on Broadway, which I have experienced. I think I was down there the other night. I was halfway across the pedestrian bridge and could clearly hear like lyrics and clear notes from one of the establishments. It's halfway across the pedestrian bridge. So I think this sounds like a good step in the right direction there. But I'm wondering about like establishments that we have like on the corridors, like on Dickerson or Gallatin, that we frequently get complaints about exterior facing speakers onto patios, as well as like PA systems that are set up for like DJs and bands and stuff. And we've found like the extent of the response that we've been able to do as neighborhoods is basically get MNPD to maybe go over there and have a conversation with someone who happens to be working that night. If they're real lucky, they might find a business owner or something to talk with. And then it cools off for a minute, and then the next DJ goes on a set and says, well, this isn't loud enough. And then it's, rolling through the neighborhoods. So, do y'all, on the enforcement side, do y'all see this legislation as improving our ability to respond to those situations?
I think from our perspective, it does. I mean, we have a finite number of resources, as we've discussed many times here, and calls for service, and obviously we prioritize calls for service. So I think any help that we can get from other departments to help address issues that, obviously we don't expect NDOT or codes to go into a dangerous situation and, go to a house party and knock on a door where there might be a problem. But at a business, if they're able to assist us with following up, they might be able to have a little bit more robust follow-up than we may be able to commit.
And then plus, as we're going into neighborhoods where there's a residential parking permit program, if there's an issue, we'll be able to have through the MOU a report back and then given direction on how to approach it. So there'll be that type of communication happening as well.
So I totally get we've been talking about this for years in different capacities about having some codes folks that are around at night, for Airbnb, for parties, for whatever. I wonder, is there a way to do this where a codes person could go out and take the decibel meter, take measurements, attest to it's coming from this business at this time, and then take that to, I don't know, an officer, or not have to interact with the business, but to be able to build the case for a citation to happen and swear to yes, I was there at 8 p.m. on Friday night and took this reading with my decibel meter. Because, again, from the way that we've been somewhat impactful or effective, I don't even know if I would use those words, is it's just a conversation, and then after that touch wears off, the volume goes right back up.
I will say and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I will say we work with Metro Legal. Oftentimes when we have persistent issues with that, having the issue, there's Metro citations, a $50 fine, and sometimes it doesn't always resolve the issue. So we do, when it's somebody who's just insistent that I'm not going to stop, we'll work with Metro. It's rare, but we'll work with Metro Legal on injunction measures through the court, which can obviously have a little bit more hefty penalty.
Yeah. And then I guess the last thing is just sort of the, as we deal with this at the neighborhood level, I'm always wary of when it's oh, here's 3 different departments that are responsible for this. And it sounds like the MOU will hopefully sort of lay out who's going to do what and how it's going to flow. But it's just I tell people, when you email the council members at nashville.gov, that goes to 39 people, and then it's nobody's problem. If you email me, it's my problem. So I'm wary of having 3 different departments where it's oh, is it supposed to be codes? Is it supposed to be NDOT? Is it supposed to be MNPD? So I guess I'll look forward to that MOU to see how that will be laid out then.
Councilmember Swope.
Chief Gilder, I'm just curious, has anybody stood at 10 o'clock on a Friday night at the intersection of Broadway and 3rd Avenue and just opened up a decibel meter, just turned it on?
I don't.
My guess is the white noise level downtown exceeds 85 already.
Yeah, I think the thing, kind of like Councilmember Syracuse mentioned, that's probably most enforceable for us and anybody else is the provision about the speakers. I mean, the ambient noise downtown is probably over.
I'm going to say it's at least 80.
It's extremely loud. The issue for us is, even with officers with earpieces, they can't hear each other. The dispatchers can't hear them. And they even had a couple of incidents where there was gunfire. They didn't even hear the gunfire. They saw people running from the gunfire blocks away. So,
I'd like to move approval of the substitute, but with a re-referral to this committee on 3rd to review that MOU.
Second.
All right. Got a motion, proper second. Ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Motion carries 5 in favor, 0 against. Final item of business is BL 2020.
Oh, we're going to do the bill as substituted.
Oh, you're exactly right.
With a referral.
Okay.
Move the bill as substituted with a re-referral to this committee.
Okay, perfect. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Substitute bill passes with a re-referral back to this committee. Thank you. Okay, final item of business, BL 2023-2124 by Roten and Evans. This amends ordinance BL 2013-395 and approves an extension of 1 year to the initial term of the cable television franchise of Comcast of Nashville 1 LLC, or ILLC, pending completion of the franchise renewal process.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I know we need to move, but I'm just very curious what this is.
That's
We have-
the same question I got. What is this?
Can we get like the short, the too long didn't read
Director
version of what
Durbin?
this is, sir?
Happy to, thank you, Councilmember. So for over 40 years, Comcast and its predecessors have had basically paid Metro a fee for the use of our right-of-way for provision of cable services and only cable television services. This comes up every 10 years. They're on a 10-year term. There is a negotiation process with Comcast for a local franchise agreement, which is custom to them. The other alternative would be a statewide franchise that AT&T and everybody else goes to. And so this is just what Comcast wants to do. They want to negotiate with us every 10 years a custom agreement, the terms of which are typically pretty much what they were the last time.
And when you say use our right of way, where are these cable lines running?
So most of them are up.
On every phone pole
Yep.
owned by AT&T and or NES, and that's an 80-20 split.
Yeah.
One other question for you.
Yes.
Does this agreement now include internet services?
It does not. The state took that right away from us last year.
That's right.
Well, they took streaming away from us. Let me be clear. They took streaming. It has never included internet, and
Why not?
because they won't agree to that. So one of the things about the fact that this is a local agreement, when AT&T went and established a statewide franchise, that basically sets a floor
Yeah.
on what a local franchisee will do. So if you try to get above that floor, their back out is always, well, I'll just take what AT&T got, which in this case does not include
Yeah, of course.
that internet services. And then again, last year, I think it was last year, the state ruled that we could not charge for streaming services, which was a big deal nationally. I think Knoxville took it and it was disallowed. Yes, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for this information. The $200,000, is that the same, did we renew it at the same rate, or have we accounted for, I don't know, inflation and things of that nature?
That's an excellent question. So there are two financial components to this. So there is the 5% of calculated cable revenue, which is going like this every year. The other piece of that is in the 10-year-old agreement, it was $200,000 a year. So Comcast agreed for this period of this 1-year extension just to do that $200,000 to be consistent with the last 10 years.
So this will have to be renegotiated next year.
Yes, it's in the process.
We should talk about this.
We're,
One more really quick question.
that's your
Thank you for that. That's what I was wondering if we were gonna account for any type of inflation. One more really quick question. I don't know if this is to you or to Director Alacon, but we have issues with hanging lines in our street, in our community, and we don't always know, is this a NES line or is this a AT&T or a Comcast? Who do we reach out to when we have these issues? How do we address it? Because we have them that actually are dipping into the street and some that are just cut that are hanging.
So typically, those are Comcast, and if you put them in Hub Nashville, it'll come to us, or it'll come to IT&T, and then we'll go out and investigate, and then we'll actually make a phone call. And so I've actually spoke to Keith that as we're going through the negotiation, we want to be involved because we're having that issue everywhere throughout the city and the county. So we want to get that addressed as part of this new agreement about a time in which we want it corrected, because I have some areas where it's been that way for about 90 days,
Yeah.
if not longer.
And we've had some previous hub requests put in that were not addressed.
Yes.
Because that's what I tell my constituents, to put it into the hub, and we have some that just.
It's still,
been out there
yeah.
for a
So
year.
we are working with them. I met with their government affairs folks last month and sort of talked about how we can improve the maintenance That include when NES comes in and puts new poles in, even relocating. I have a big issue where I have a lot of poles that just have, Comcast on it and really nobody else, and I need Comcast to move over their stuff so we can get that pole removed. And NES sends that over to Comcast. So that's some of the conversation we're going to be having as we're working through this franchise agreement.
Thank you, appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Councilmember Swope.
Last term, we spent a lot of time arguing the one-touch rule. Rule of thumb, power is always on the top. Always. There's usually a 6 to 8 foot buffer, and then if it's an AT&T pole, AT&T's line will be at the very top of that whole group of lines that runs phone lines, fiber, Comcast, AT&T. If it's an NES pole, it's liable to be anybody's on top, because NES doesn't care. But right now, every single one of those, NES puts in a new pole, or AT&T puts in a new pole. Everybody that has to attach that pole has to schedule a time to go in and attach to that pole on their own, one at a time. It is insanity. Because you look at some of the poles running down this thing, they have 30 lines attached to them, and every one of those has to be dealt with separately. That's the reason why we desperately tried to get one touch to pass. It never did.
It passed. It passed. It was preempted by the Sixth Circuit.
Yeah.
We passed the ordinance.
Yeah, and then AT&T and everybody else sued the hell out of the city. Anyway.
Reining it back into the item on.
Sorry,
That's-
yeah.
That's all right. I know you like a long meeting.
No. No, I like a 90-second meeting.
I know
It's
you
like a
do.
90-minute movie.
I know. I appreciate the dialogue, though. It's good information. Thank you for that.
We've lived it.
Okay, we're ready for a vote. All in favor of passing BL 2023-2124, say aye.
Aye. Sure.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, it passes 5 in favor, 0 against, and with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
It's 3.
Better job than me, 'cause it's really terrible.
You were right.